dangerous.
Bad feeling about this.
You don't seem to understand something.
The thing that I like most about being a dad is that I see that I'm about to impact the world. Yes, sir. It's your boy Humble Dad back with another edition of Humble Dad Podcast. We got a great show for you this evening. Why? Because I said so. As usual, we got a great and phenomenal panel that is going to be talking about, are men the problem? Considering all the things that are currently happening in the world, I want to know, is it the result of men being the problem and not being men? Or is it something else? Let's talk about it. And the question of the evening is, what makes you want to join the Humble Dad Podcast? Pretty simple question. And we're going to start with the person that just arrived at the 20K mark over on Instagram, I believe, Mr. Apollos, Mending Eden. What's going on, homie?
Nothing much, bro. I appreciate you having me on. I joined, man, because I love the platform that you've put together, man. It allows us to have conversations that honestly a lot of us don't have outside of a few different areas. So, this podcast allows us to not only have these conversations, but come from different viewpoints, where we can kind of say how we think. And, the last time I was up here, nobody was upset with each other. We had different opinions, but everybody seems to get along. So I love the open and honest discussion that we can actually have up here.
That's what's up. Appreciate you being here, bro.
Definitely.
Hey, and back as always, he be lifting weights all the time on Instagram now. Mr. Prototype.
What's up, man?
What's up, bro?
I lift weights all the time. But not just on Instagram, everywhere. Man, I think this pod is an opportunity to talk about some topics that we're not going to talk about on our pod. You know what I mean? We attack some different topics here, so it gives me the opportunity to kind of express how I feel about what's going on, because I know we do over here. It's a little bit more what's current. You know what I'm saying? So, and we won't necessarily talk about what's current on Prototype Dad. So.
You're muted.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah. And then back without further ado, she been sick. She says she had the flu, but we all know what she had. Miss Tamia.
It was not COVID.
I didn't say what you had. You said that. See?
Okay. Why do I join this podcast where I'm always bullied by Humble Dad? I don't know. I'm kidding. No, honestly, it provides a space for me to use my voice, share my perspective, especially as a young lady. I've appreciated an environment where I can hear multiple perspectives, especially from male counterparts as well. And it feels like a place to have a safe conversation. So even if everything isn't agreeable, everyone respects one another. And you don't see that often on podcasts that also welcome women to have conversations, even about like topics like tonight. So I truly appreciate that. And it brought our conversations that we'd have at work. They flourished. We're able to have them, in a deeper context here with other like-minded individuals. So that's why I come.
That's a bet. I appreciate you. Hey, and you know what I'm saying? I think he's like either Billy D. Williams, maybe like a Lonnie Love, like the way that he kind of spit his knowledge a little bit. It's kind of in that vernacular, I would say. None other than Lost in Translation.
Good evening, Humble Dad. How are you this evening, sir?
Yeah. Barry White. That's the name that I was thinking about.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
What you got?
So you asked the question, why did I join the Humble Dad podcast? Because iron sharpens iron, man. And over here we have intellectual conversations, and I'm a sucker, for some intellectual conversation. You know what I mean? And not only that, man, I consider myself somewhat of a sponge. You know what I mean? I like to gather up information from different places and spread it abroad, and hopefully it elevates the conversation, because it's far more difficult to talk about the difficult things than it is to dismiss it and make fun of it and poke fun of it. You know what I mean? And really not move the conversation forward. But over here, to me, it seems like the work is getting done. So if there's work to be done, I'm going to be here to help.
That's a bet. Appreciate you as usual. And then better late than never. You know what I'm saying? Always on time. Her own time. Miss Ash. What's going on?
You go stop it. You go stop it.
No, I am not. The question, did you hear what the question was? I know you would just
yes. Why we joined the podcast.
Yes.
Reason why I like it so much is because everybody getting their point of views and share where we come from. Because at the end of the day, we're not having that conversation no more and sharing with our youth that we can come from different backgrounds and also show that we can get along. Because now it's hood against hood. But as you can see, we all got different backgrounds. We all doing different things, different jobs. And we can show that we still can come together and get our point across without having to be up in an uproar. And then we do have our little side jokes. I'm going to learn to be on time and not color people time.
We do have side jokes. And the reason why I put the panel together, it was Lapeef Jr., who's kind of like he was somewhat of still a mentor as it relates in this space. And he was like, you should probably do a panel so you won't have to always be looking for dads. Because that's what I was doing in the beginning. I was interviewing dads. And I interviewed over 100 of them. And I was always having to find somebody at the last minute. But with a panel, I could either do one by myself, or I can also, have a band of people, so to speak, that will be committed to the same goal. And so, yes, we typically have some of the same ideas, but sometimes we do disagree, but we have the same goal. So that's why I chose the people. That's why I choose the people that I choose to be on. You know what I'm saying? And there have been people that said, no, that's their loss, not mine. And that's my humble opinion. You feel me? And so, and I appreciate y'all rocking out with me, because it's a time that you could have dedicated somewhere else. And I really value that. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to welcome my homie, my friend, my accountability partner, who is always on mute. My homie, Dwayne Jones. What it is, homie?
What's going on, beautiful people?
Good.
Right.
Did you see? You didn't get the question, did you?
No, sure didn't.
The question is, why did you join the Humble Dad podcast?
Oh, man. Well, to be real with y'all, before I even knew who HD was, I used to see him in church. And I used to see him always with his kids, right? And that was like me. Like my kids were usually with my wife. So I was admiring him from afar, because I was like, man, he handling up. He taking care of business with his kids. So like, had the opportunity to get to know him in an unfortunate circumstance, but fortunate that I got to know the dude. And then it always puzzled me a little bit why the name Humble was attached to this guy. But you know what? After getting to know him, figuring out what he's trying to do with the whole fatherhood thing, that's a humbling experience. And every time I ask him, man, or tell him, man, you sure ain't humble. He said, man, I'm living it. I'm trying. So I appreciate that and I respect that.
That's what's up. Like, you tell me what I'm like offline. I feel you. It makes sense. Well, to me, a no too, though. So it is what it is. I think Ash, you was work with me before. That's when I was really bad. You know what I'm saying? She knew me before like I had any idea who Christ was. So I'm thankful for the change. So we're gonna get rocking and rolling. And we're gonna start with the first question. We're gonna build it like this. What is the difference between a man and a male? What is the difference between a man and a male? Okay, and I'm gonna start like, who wants to go first? And you get to decide who goes next. We'll rock it like that today. Go ahead, Tamia.
I'm being brave. Okay. So I figured it'd be spicy if I went first, right? If the woman goes first. Okay, so I feel like when you say somebody's a man, that's like a characteristic. It's like something that a male embodies, right? You can be a male and not a man. It's kind of like how you have a boy who turns into a man. He takes on certain responsibilities, he takes on a certain stature. It's kind of like a transition into a different standpoint of his life. Kind of like an alpha out, it's called alpha male, but you get what I'm saying. He walks with a certain stride. His mental is in a certain place. A male, that just sounds, it's his scientific orientation. Um, Maybe he's not as courageous or brave, or he's not having a alpha male perspective, but biologically, he's a male, and that's how I see it. Oh, I have. I'll give it to Dwayne. It looks like he has something on his mind.
Man, I was trying to think about the question. This is like the question he had, but the difference between a dad and a father. Man, I still scratch my head about that one. I'll say a male is the gender characteristics, and a man is the role and the responsibility in which he assumes. Let's go with Ash. What you got on it?
I don't like that you stole mine, then called on me, boy. You ain't right. But yeah, I second that, because to me, the man is the one that's doing the adult things, and male is just what you got. It's not really no elaboration on it. Man is who's showing up every day, going out his way, doing the adult thing. I guess you could say what the new age people say, adulting. And I'm gonna throw it to prototype.
A man is an adult male. Like all this characteristics of this and that, man, that's rubbish. Like a male who is grown is a man. Like ain't no other ways around it. It doesn't matter what he's doing. He could be a bum on the street. He could be wherever in life that he's at. But if he's above 18, that male was a man. So all this and that and handling it doesn't matter. A man is a man is a man, and that's just what it is. We'll go to Paulo.
No, I actually fully agree with prototype. A male is just the part of the man's design. I think sometimes the issue is that we constantly try to divide ourselves into different pieces to try to explain different behaviors that we've seen or that we've experienced from people in our past. But I mean, if we're just thinking about the word itself, a male is just that. It's just the part of the man's design. The man as in a he, but man in itself is a species. So I mean, we can really go really deep into that. But as far as male and man, yeah, it's just really part of the man's design, to be honest. Lost in translation.
Thank you. There was this thing that was said that says, let us create man in our own image. Okay. There was a movie that I remember watching called The Kingsman. And they had a saying that said, manners maketh man. So in my opinion, I think the way a man carries himself is what makes a man. You know what I mean? You're born male. You don't have anything to do with that. You know what I'm saying? You dealt with the cards that you dealt. But how you conduct yourself is a different story. You know what I mean? Because when you carry yourself in such a way, then you become a man. So manners maketh man. So how you carry yourself and how you conduct yourself makes you a man.
So it sounds like some disagreement. Anybody want to respond?
Man, it's tough to call a man whenever he's got a skirt on and high heels, playing a role of a woman. That's just my.
It's not really tough at all. You know what I'm saying? Like he is what he is. I don't understand why we're trying to make man such this this thing on a pedestal of, oh, you ain't no man, or you, I mean, I understand that if we're trying to, you know, degrade somebody, like, oh, you ain't no man because you ain't doing this or doing that. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, every adult male is a man. You know what I'm saying? If he's wearing a dress or not, you know what I'm saying? It just is what it is, man. And I mean, there's really no way around it. Like, now, if y'all want to talk about characteristics and character traits, and you know what I'm saying, what a good person is, and you know, along that line, then that's something different. But just flat out being a man, I mean, there ain't. I mean, let's stop making it so complicated and let's talk about some real stuff here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the basic definition. But let me say this. I understand what everybody's saying when they are breaking it down like that, because, you know, especially in this world, you do have to break it down in certain areas. But the basic definition is that, though, is a man is defined, even if you Google it in the dictionary, as a human male, a human being that's male. But I guess with the question, Humble Dad, were you talking about characteristics? Is that where you're trying to make the difference?
I always like people to ask me questions, but the reason why I ask the question is to see your context. So however you want to put it, we'll lean on that, and then I try to speak from your vantage point. That's typically how I ask my questions.
I got you. So yeah, I mean, it's if we are talking about characteristics, that's something else. But if we're going to break it down between the character of a man and a male, then the only difference is the sin nature. Then, right? That's the only thing that separates that. Then is sin, because without it, man becomes whole. With sin, we become divided. So then that to me really puts it in a clear box. If, you know, well, for me, looking at it from the lens of the Bible, it puts it in a clear box. It's like, okay, well, what is a man? To me, it has nothing to do with masculinity. It has everything to do with the design. And if you go to Psalms 1:1-3, it tells you a couple things. It tells you what a blessed man is. It says, blessed is the man who walketh not to the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. Then it tells you what a blessed man does. It says, his delight is in the law of the Lord, and his law doth he meditate both day and night. And then it tells you what happens after you do those two things. And he says, he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf shall not wither, and everything that he does shall prosper. So if we're talking about the difference between a male and a man, then we are talking about the difference between the sin nature with someone who has accepted Christ and someone who is deciding not to accept Christ. And that's the difference between someone who's blessed and prosperous and someone who is cursed and prosperity doesn't follow them.
No, you one of them guys.
Yep. I'm one of them guys. Yep.
Talking circles and make absolutely no sense.
Nah, I'm just coming.
I understand. I understand. You know, you got a Christian, you know, strong faith, you know, whatever. But that really didn't make no sense, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, being a blessed man is, you know, that's different. That's putting another, you know what I mean, something on it. But a man is a man, you know. Now that person is blessed if they become all those things, and you know, God is blessing them that way, and you know, they have jewels and gems and whatever to give out to, you know, the nations. But come on, bro, like, a man's a man, and you know, that's that. But blessed is something that you can put in its own category of things that somebody blessed would, you know, would be able to distribute or gain or whatever. So I mean, I'm not going to say if you're not blessed, you're not a man, because like I said, it don't matter where you stand. You could be a bum on the street, you could be a murderer in jail. That person's a man, and it just is what it is.
Yeah, I was just breaking down the sin nature with it all.
Even with the sin nature, man, I don't know. You got to in the back chat. Send me where you could divide a man by its sinful nature. You know what I mean? Because I would say even somebody with Down syndrome that's an adult is a man.
So when I'm talking about sin nature, right, I'm talking about what is the most natural thing to us all? Sin. Like, that's supernatural. That's why when we have kids, we don't have to teach them how to do wrong. We really only have to teach them how to do right. Like, that's always a struggle. And that's the struggle with us as men when it comes to development too, is how do we continue to develop to do the right thing? And a lot of times we think we know what the right thing is, but we really have no idea. And that's why we're actually having this conversation. Is it the man's fault? Well, is what the man's fault? Is the result of where the world is now? Is it because of us as men in the past not really knowing how to lead in the way that we should? I say no. I say it's not, because I say everything is due to the fall of man. It's due to that sin nature within man. Because when you look at power, it doesn't matter who has it. Now what we're seeing is that women have power as well. Are they better with the power than men were? No, because power just corrupts people, right? It's just an absolute thing that starts to corrupt us all. So that's why I always go back to the sin nature within man, because it is that separator.
I'll tell you what.
You know what, Humble Dad, if I
I
may,
just
Yeah, go ahead.
if I may,
You good? Go ahead.
if I may, I
Yeah.
can certainly see where Prototype is coming from, and I'm gonna put it like this: whether he's a man who's broken, whether he's a man who prospers, whether he's a man who's lost, or whether he's a man that's doing wonderful things with his life, he's still a man. I like to interject the difference between a man and a male usually lies at the feet of responsibility. The moment that responsibility is placed on you, I think that is the essence in where a boy becomes a man, or a male becomes a man in that particular situation. But I'm more inclined to believe what Prototype is saying. But deep down inside, Apollo rings to me as well, because there are certain things that combine to make a man, and both of them are correct. And I just wanted to say that, because my thing is that the moment that responsibility is laid upon your feet, I think that is when you become a man. And then after that, it's on you.
You was going exactly where I was about to go to, Lost in Translation. My next question was going to be, then what is the role of a man? Right? If we're saying, or some people are saying that, Prototype is saying specifically that they're synonymous, I would disagree. Okay. The reason why I would disagree is because males don't have, males are characterized by their gender, not based on their responsibility. Right. So let's talk about it. What's the role of a man? And we'll start with you, Ash.
Okay. Whew, Jesus. God be with us all.
Yeah. What do you think?
Okay.
Put it like this. I'll make it even more. What would the role of a man be in your life? We'll put it like that.
Okay, that's where I was finna go with it. From my perspective, that would be the person that leads the household. That's the one that's showing the leadership, the qualities, and leading the family in the right direction financially, and also pretty much making all the decisions. He's pretty much the coach, and I'm the assistant coach. Let's take it to that perspective. To me, the man is really, it's no word really to me. I really just can't put it in words, because when you see a man, you know it. When you see a grown man, you know what that is. It's not. I don't know. Y'all got me scared to put it in words. I don't even know how to put it in words. Yeah, pretty much. He demonstrates strong leadership qualities. He may be a pillar in the community. That's pretty much not for everybody, as we found out. Yeah, we're gonna go to Mia, see if she got that one, because I really don't have that one.
Well, for me, definitely to protect. I have down to lead, provide both spiritually and mentally, emotionally for his household. And that was painted for me biblically, I would say, because I personally didn't grow up with, my dad was around, but he wasn't the ideal not to down him, but he wasn't the idea. What the Bible says a man should do. I didn't have that majority of my life. I didn't have that example. I lived with my grandparents. They're married. My grandfather was in the house, but it wasn't always the full image. He provided, but it was more so I'm going to work from night and day, come home and not really focus on the household. So I would say that a man is also, like Ash said, a pillar in the community. So he serves, and a leader, just like a leader in a good way, though, because you can have leaders that aren't leading properly. So leading with God as his guide. So it's not just him in his own head and whatever he's piecing together to lead his family. He seeks counsel in the proper areas, and he's emotionally aware. Protect, provide, pray, be stable, make sure the house is not falling apart, and is also able to seek counsel and from mainly God. Yeah.
Who you got going next?
Sorry, I thought it was open for. Let's hear Prototype. I'm curious.
Don't be afraid of me now. Man, a man doesn't have a role. So he doesn't. A husband has a role. A father has a role. A brother, a neighbor, a pastor, they have roles. But a man by himself, he don't have a role. You know what I mean? So, but when he's your dad, when he's your grandfather, when he's those things, when he has that title, those people have roles. You know what I'm saying? And that's what everyone's trying to describe. But it's not a man by himself per se. But your brother has a role, and your husband has a role, and your pastor has a role. Your teacher, you know, whatever job that man, your boss, they have a role. We'll go to Apollos.
All right. So I'm not gonna say I disagree, but I don't necessarily agree either. A man's role is to be like God, right? I'm that guy. I do come from that a lot, Prototype, just because I'm be honest,
a believer
bro,
has a role.
Yeah, that's all I know, man. Coming from where I came from, I know what it feels like to be a man without a role. You know what I mean? A man without a purpose, a man without any type of drive or ambition. And then I know the other side of that, where when I did decide to submit and yield, and it says humility comes before honor. When I did decide to finally yield, I started to understand my role on this earth as a man, before a wife, before kids. And as a man, it was to develop myself to become more godlike. So really, the role of a man is not what you see on the outside. It's really what's on the inside. It's when nobody else is around. Who are you when it's just you? You're by yourself. You look in the mirror. What's on the inside of that house, right? So for me, the role is just that, is to develop myself to be more godlike. So then when I do step into these different areas, I'm already becoming what I was supposed to be. So yeah.
Who you got next?
Let's do Dwayne.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I'm gonna have to disagree, Prototype, because like as for we talked about, I think we talked about last week, as for role models, right? As for modeling your role, and especially like as for men that are raised by single moms, it's difficult to find a role model in a mom as a man, because only a man can turn a boy into a man from that perspective. So I had to disagree with that, because even in society, men, they have to look out. In particular, men look out for the most vulnerable in society. They're supposed to. And in that, you have to be able to man up in order to be able to be brave enough to step out on a limb and take on that responsibility. And ultimately, like what y'all were saying, and I like how you put it, Apollos, because a real man, I believe, will then have enough humility to submit to God. And in that regard, just like it says, God is the head of man, and man is the head of his wife. So in that regard, there's a hierarchy to it, and you have to be able to acknowledge that hierarchy in itself. And in that, he will set your path straight. So it is a role. And I think, me personally, what I see, society is jacked up because there's a whole bunch of people not playing their role. Lost in translation.
Thank you, Dwayne. I had to think about this for a minute because the prototype is making a heck of an argument. Because in order for a man to have a particular role, it has to be in conjunction with something. There's a modifier. You know what I mean? Just like if there's a husband, you know, you can't be a husband without a wife. You know, you can't be a dad without kids. You know what I mean? We can definitely apply those things if we're like stepdads or something like that. Yeah. But at the same time, there's certain things that require a modifier, just like a teacher can't be a teacher without students. You know what I mean? So I'm more inclined to believe that. But my thing is this, a man without a role, a man without vision, a man without a purpose, is he really a man? You know what I mean? Those are the questions that we really need to ask. But at the same time, just like Prototype said earlier, you know, a man is going to be man regardless whether he has a role or a position, which leads me to believe, is it something that is required from us to be in relation to something? Or is it something that we stand on? Or could it be something that is both? So I'm inclined to believe that if you, like Apollo said, if you are inclined to follow God and he gives you a particular mission, then your mission in relationship is to God until he gives you an assignment. And at the same time, I'm still inclined to believe what Dwayne said earlier. You know what I mean? Because you still have to have some type of responsibility in that particular role. So if we put all those things together, a man stands with God in relationship to who he is. A man also stands on his own. You know what I mean? He can do things on his own. And also a man can stand as his relationship to who he serves. You know what I mean? Whether it be his family or his community. So in essence, if we think about it, man can be all three things, just like God. God can be a spirit. God can be a man. God can be the Holy Ghost. You see what I'm saying? If God made us all in his image, then why can't we be all three things at the same time, just like him? You see what I'm saying? So there's a part of us that is divine, and there is a part of us that is finite. So if I'm here to believe that, then we are many things. So if that's to be said, if we are many things, then why don't we treat each other as if we're many things? Why don't we respect each other as many things? And it seems like we like to spend a lot of time dividing ourselves into little bitty pieces when we're greater once you think about it. So in essence, if we're all these things, then why do we have this need to divide who we are?
Yeah, can I just say one thing real quick? I love what you just said, lost in translation. You know, when I think of role and I think of creation as a whole and God being the creator, you know, I was just trying to think about something when we were just talking, and I couldn't think of one thing that was designed and that has ever been created that doesn't have a role. You know, a fork without food, you know, still has the role of a fork. You know what I mean? Like I would just thinking about that, and I was loving exactly what you were saying. I was just thinking about the world and how it's created. And I was thinking about grass and the role of grass. I was thinking about a tree. I was thinking about a desk. I was thinking about a spoon. I mean, literally in that short span of time, I couldn't think of one thing that has ever been created that didn't have a role, you know, and not even just a role, but a specific role, which means that if there's a specific role, then there's a specific design. Like a fork, you can use a fork for many different things, you know, but it's only designed for one thing, one specific thing, you know, and that's and it will only be successful in doing what it was specifically designed to do. Now, you can pick up cereal with the fork, but a spoon was designed to really use, for cereal, right? But I'm just saying I can't think of one thing. And y'all please, chime in to help me out, because maybe there is something. I just can't think of anything yet that does not have a role. So as men, even without a modifier, right? Even without something that we can modify at that moment, we were still designed specifically for whenever that modifier comes into play. That's exactly what we were designed for. So I think I listened to what you were saying. It just brought all of that to light, and the many things that we can do, right? You're right. We are many things, and those many things combined makes us whole and united and full, but even without any of those things, like, we still have a specific role. Just because if we say we don't have a specific role, then the fork becomes greater than the man. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna take that off, and I just want to see what y'all think about that.
But
My
then
thing is,
that goes
Go
back
ahead,
to
let me
We'll
explain
come to you.
something before I'm going to rebut on what he said.
Okay, good.
In the presence of your purpose, your genius is revealed. That's the reason why the fork is special when it comes to eating certain foods. That's the reason why the spoon is special when it comes to eating cereal. That's the reason why man reveals himself in the presence of a woman, in the presence of his family, in the presence of his community. That is when his genius is revealed. So my thing is this: when you remove a man from his purpose, then it's hard for his genius to be revealed.
Agreed. No. And I wholeheartedly agree with that 100%. I believe, just like you, we have a specific purpose, and you're right. That is where the genius is revealed, and that's why the role of a man without anything is to become. You know what I mean? Is to become himself. It's become the future that God has placed inside of him. It's not outside of us. And when like I say man and woman, because we're just a species, right? We just have different functions in order to be able to reproduce on this earth, right? But we are designed, like you said, for a specific purpose. So the role, until we get to that, like you said, lost in translation, is to become as godlike as we can by yielding ourselves to God. That, like yielding is such a powerful word. People get caught up with the word submission, but think about what submission means, right? Submission means to yield. So I was driving the other day, and there was an old man that was crossing the street. Right now, I had to yield to him, and he was really old. But it didn't matter how much my car cost and how old he is. His life was still more valuable than my car. So I had to yield to something greater. And that's really what submission is. And by submitting to God before we even know what our purpose is, like you said, lost in translation, what it does is it puts us on that right path to become exactly what we were designed to do in the first place. I love what you said, bro.
But
Ash,
then for me,
let me go with Ash and then Tamia.
okay, that just goes back to what Prototype was saying. Either way, without your calling or whatever, you still a man. So I mean, to me, it just seemed like it just went back to what Prototype was saying. Before you get your calling, before you know whatever you gonna do or step into God's purpose, you still a man. It's just that you ain't found what path you need to take. That's all I wanted to say, really. Because as everybody was speaking, it was like, well, can't fight Prototype on this because you're still a man. You just don't know what way or what direction you need to take. But it still all bounds down to it. You still a man, whether it's genetics or whatever. That's your role. But today, our society has blurred that line of what a man is. And again, that's what got me stumped. Because we can all say what a man is and what their purpose is, but at the same time, a lot of people don't see it that way. They see that I'm a boy, I'm of age, I'm a man, and that's really not in everybody's eyes equal. But I have to go back to Prototype. He was right. You're still a man, you just don't have a purpose. You're still a man, you just in jail. You know, you still a man, you just a bum. You know, you don't want to take the extra initiative to do what you need to do to move out your financial state or get yourself together or clean up or whatever the situation may be.
On you, Tamia.
So a Bible verse came up for me. Matthew 10:26-31, where he says, "Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside of your Father's care, and even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid, you are worth more than many sparrows," right? So for one, I feel like even the man in jail, even the quote unquote, bum, even the one who is blessed, we all have purpose, right? So agreed. I can see Prototype's perspective. I honestly think we are all saying the same thing. Where it's like everybody has a purpose. Now, when you tap into that purpose is on you, which where it comes to that first, that initial question, difference between man and male, but particularly from my experience, my perspective, it's like there is a point when you realize your being, right? Like there's a point where you understand, like every hair on my head is accounted for. I was created with purpose. Now, how long that takes for someone to step into that and own that character that we're all speaking about, or that role that we're all speaking about, is on that person's path that God has written for them, or for when they have that realization. But even the man who, let's say the guy in jail, like his testimony, that's already written, like that was already written. Those hairs were numbered. Yes, we fall off track regardless. He has a purpose. There's something he's supposed to learn from that. He's an example elsewhere. He learns from his lessons. Regardless, there's purpose in that. Regardless, he is still a man. Whether we think of it in the word, where we're all man, we all have a purpose. We all have something that we step into, and why we are here. There's nobody like just here. Like even the individuals that feel like they're just here, they're not just here, So essentially there is intentionality with man, but there's that point where you realize, like, I'm not just a male, like I'm not just male. I'm actually man. I'm actually made in God's image. I'm actually accounted for. So that's just what I got from what I was hearing. We all understand that there's a purpose. There's just that point where it's like you realize what you want to do with it. And that differs for some. It's either you're going to stand in God's image, or you just going to like stay in that space of, I'm a male, I'm here, I have these parts, I've been made this way, but actively stepping into those hairs you're accounted for. It's even in Matthew when he speaks about, like, I created, the birds, they don't look for food. Why do you worry about hunger? Or like the plants, the fact they're going to burn. He even tells us, like, you're way more worthy than those things. So it's kind of like, why are you worried? Or why are you actually not doing anything? Because I actually did send you here for something, whatever that may be. So yeah, that's what came up for me.
I think it's interesting, the conversation. I never know who's going to say what and how's it going to go. So, but it's a good conversation. I'm saying, I think, and I would say it's like this. You're born male. You're not born a man. You have to become a man, right? And in order to become a man, back in the day, I guess, even some cultures, that you have to be initiated into being a man, right? And so if you're not initiated into being a man, then you're not going to be one, all right? So I'm saying that there is a difference, because there are women that are saying that they're men, that are also trying to take the role of a man. And so if you're saying that just because he was a boy was born, then that makes him a man, then how is it then a woman is now saying that she's a man? That's why I'm saying that there's a clear distinction between a man and a male, because a man specifically has a duty and a responsibility to himself as well as to those that are around him. And so you have to become a man. is what I'm saying. And so just because you turn of age doesn't make you anything. Because if you're immature, then you, and I say, well, you're an immature man. No, that because men don't act that way, right? Men act a certain way. That's why the statement is he's a man's man. He's a leader of men. Why? Because he's a set above what the standard is required to be in most people's eyes, a man. Currently we would say Deion Sanders is a leader of men. He's a man's man, so to speak, right? But you wouldn't say that about the bum on the street. You would say, man, that's a good man right there. No, you would say that he's not a real man. Why? Because he's not fulfilling the duties of what we just talked about, right? What a man would be. So I understand Prototype's position, but that's the reason why I disagree on that particular premise. Did you want to respond to that, Prototype? You good?
I mean, there's nothing to respond to. Y'all think how y'all think.
You think how you think. What you talking about?
Exactly. I mean, I can't change your minds. I gave my best argument.
No, you did though. You had Lost in Translation think differently. You also had Ash think differently. So you had people change their perspective.
What I'm saying is, I mean, I kind of already said it, but I mean, if you're saying a man is supposed to have these certain characteristics, that's why women are now saying I'm a man, because they're taking on these characteristics. It goes against your argument, your exact argument. So she can start acting like a man's man, and now she thinks she's a man because she's acting and fulfilling the traits that
But
you
she's
just
still
said.
not a man.
She's still not a man, but because she's doing those traits that you guys are speaking of, now she thinks that she is a man, which is not true.
I'm sorry, Prototype. I think that's on that individual. Like it's not about what you make available to individuals to take on roles that aren't obligated to them. Like I can go walk around and say I'm a chimpanzee. Like I'm not a chimpanzee. I will never in my life be a chimpanzee, right?
But you can.
But I can do that, but that's also free will. God also gave us free will. So it's like I can say I'm this, but in all is that truly the truth? Is that reality? Because then you have true and you have truth. They're two different things. A woman may believe that it's true to her that I think I'm a man because I'm the only woman in this house and I'm playing father and mother to these children, but that is not the truth. She is not the father of those children. She is not a man. She may feel that she embodies some of those characteristics due to studying it, practicing it, or think that she's taking it on, but essentially she's not that. And that's on her.
You can't disqualify her if she's doing all those things that you guys are saying. Listen, my argument is it's an adult male. She can't do that. But she can do everything you guys are talking of. In her head, that's why she's walking around saying that's why I'm a man. Because she's doing all that stuff y'all say.
It's the same for men that want to believe that they can be women, but they're not.
Here we go.
Yeah. I mean, you can argue that all day long, but the simple fact is these people claim this all day. You can't like Prototype said.
That's not a man's fault.
Yes, it is.
If that man chose to add the W-O-N, the W-O.
Oh, no, that's not what I'm referring to. I'm saying it's not man's fault in terms of like creating a definition of man and having a standard for men. That's not at fault for creating that image now that people want to try to embody it. That is on them. You can't.
There is no standard for men. There is no the definition is an adult male. There is no standard
I've heard
for a
about
man.
Standards since I joined this podcast.
A man is a man is a man. But
no, that ain't what you say. Prototype. Like, listen,
the standard comes with modifiers.
So you're saying that so if I'm walking around, I'm on the football team. And I'm not the quarterback, but I'm walking around saying I am the quarterback, then that means that I am, just because I said that I'm the quarterback.
You guys are making that argument. That's not my argument.
What I'm saying is there is a specific role that men have to play in this society, is what I'm saying. Just because you have a genitalia doesn't mean that you're fulfilling that role.
Like
that's what I'm saying.
The role comes with what Lost in Translation said, with the modifier. You don't have a rule until you have a modifier.
So then what if you're not exhibiting any of those modifiers? So for example, you're just born and you're just existing.
When you become of age, you're still a man.
So
No
then
matter
what's the point? So then what's the point of the modifier? So in your argument is contradictory. So either
it's
there
not.
is no modifier or there is.
No, the modifier becomes when you're a husband. Now there's a standard. When you're a
But
believer,
what if you don't do none
now,
of that?
then you're just a man. You're just a man that exists.
So you just gotcha. Go ahead, Dwayne.
No. See. So whenever an adult male dresses up in a dress, like I was saying earlier, and wear heels and says he's a woman, he's not so in fact a woman. He's in fact a liar. And whenever a woman is a biological woman dresses up as a man and assumes the characteristics of a man and calls herself a man, she's not in fact a man. She's in fact a liar. So both of those people that assume a characteristic whenever their biological trait points in a specific direction, it's now assuming that role. Are they assuming that role? And I think that role comes with, like, I think it was Lost in Translation that was saying, it comes along with that responsibility. And once you accept that responsibility, that's where you now become a man. Some people are forced into those responsibilities from a young age, right? And they're forced to grow up real quickly. But I think even in this, we are saying similar things. But I think I'll put it like this: at my church, we have a thing called Man Up. And I've heard y'all, I know y'all have heard people say, hey, man up, like man up. It means to become more of what you are supposed to be. If you are an adult male, or you are a man, right? But then whenever you are exhibiting female characteristics, you need to get outside of that and man up. So, and it's assume your role. And even I think one of the definitions for man up, it was saying from a standpoint of military, like get in your station, man your station, assume your role, because you're acting out of alignment. In the same instance, whenever women act out of alignment. And I think, even it's interesting we're having this conversation, because even in society, there's Matt Walsh, I believe. He goes around and he asks, what is a woman? And with all these people trying to blur the lines of what gender is, they can't even understand or define what a woman is. Ketanji Jackson, the new Supreme Court justice, she was asked, what is a woman? She's a woman. She was asked the question, what is a woman? She could not answer it. She could not answer it. And whenever you get a society to question the basic norms, we're in trouble. So in this regard, that's where I leave it. We are in trouble because we again are out of alignment, because we are not assuming our roles. Women are not assuming their roles biologically, and men are not assuming their roles, and they're not adopting the characteristics and responsibility that role carries.
Humble Dad, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the argument of the word love. You know what I mean? Because there are different types of love. You have eros, you have, all these other different loves, agape, you know what I mean? But it's all in relation to. So just like we said earlier the other day, the modifier applies based upon its relative to its subject. So I think whenever we talk about man, it's all in relation to its modifier. And I think that's probably the reason why we're having discourse about the definition of man, pretty much like we have sometimes discourse about the definition of love, because of the way how we use language. But if there was a specific word or a specific word for the role of man, then we wouldn't have this issue, just like we don't have a specific role of the word love in relation to whatever it is. It's just, hey, it's love. I love you. I love my kids. I love my wife, that type of thing. I love what I do for my job. You know what I mean? If we had a specific word for it, then I don't think we would have this issue. But until we address what those different roles are and define what each role is, I think that's when we arrive to what the definition of what a man is.
I agree.
That's good. That's good. So I guess the next question is then, is the role of every man to be a leader? Right? Is the role of every man to be a leader? Prototype, go ahead. And this is free conversation. Prototype, what you got?
Nah, some people are sheep and some people are shepherds. You know what I mean? It's really that simple. I think if If you're called to be
Here we go.
He
For
laughed.
those that weren't
He
here
knew.
last week, that was a trigger word last week, saying
if,
we were called.
if you're called to be a husband and a father, then yeah, you're a leader, right? If you're called to be uh, a bishop or a pastor, you know what I'm saying? Then yes, which to me, if you're a husband and a father, you're called to be a pastor for your family, regardless. You know what I mean? So, yeah, as that's those. You know, there are certain men that leader, and there's some guys don't want kids, don't want family at all. You know what I mean? And you know that's just not their calling. You know what I'm saying? So. So I mean, you know, everybody's not meant to be, you know, there's sheeps and there's shepherds, and you know what I mean, and you know, people are good with either or. You know, there's men that follow a pastor around, making sure they get pastor's water and blah 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 blah. You know, there's them kind of guys, and there's all kind of things. You know, people were some servants. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, and they're all throughout the Bible. Like kings called guys. I think who played music. It wasn't it David who played music. Somebody played music. Like people, you know, there's service and there's leaders.
Anybody can go. Some of y'all.
Yeah, I second prototype. If you're not called into the leadership role, it's not for you because everybody is not made to be a leader. Some people can't stand that pressure because a lot of time, you know, people get overwhelmed when they got to go outside their household and try to spread themselves to make sure everybody's on one accord trying to get their agenda done. And some people don't know how to dictate and push out the agenda to make sure every piece is moving like the pieces in the watch, not the new age watch, but the ones with the gears. You know, some people are just okay with being a gear and just make sure they're in rotation just to do whatever.
I mean, I you know, I think everybody was designed to be a leader. That and again, that's just me. I'm just going back to the only thing that I do know. So in Genesis, I look at the world in two different lights. I look at it before the fall, I look at it after the fall, right? So before the fall, you know, it's interesting because you see the design of what every man was supposed to do. As a matter of fact, it said be fruitful, multiply, subdue, and have dominion. Now that wasn't just to a few people. That was supposed to be for everybody. It said let them have dominion. So to have dominion, that means that everybody must have some sort of domain, right? It just comes down to what you believe your identity is in, man. I mean, that's really what it boils down to with me, is that a lot of us, we just don't know what our identity is. That's where the search is. That's where the confusion is. It's like, well, who in the world am I? You know, there's like three questions. Who am I? Why am I here? Where in the world am I going? And a lot of times we have so many distractions, the phones, you know, the TVs, other people, ourselves, that it's just hard to answer those three questions. But if you just go back to the beginning, which really, when you look at the Bible, nothing is really about getting to the end. It's actually about getting back to the beginning, back into God's presence. So in the beginning, what was it supposed to be? So when I looked at how my father was or how other men were, you know, I couldn't grasp what I was supposed to be, what a leader was supposed to be. And when you look at people on television, you know, yes, they do great things, but then you uncover what they are behind closed doors. It's like, well, is that really a leader, you know, in public, but not in private? So what is the definition of a leader? What does the true leader look like? What were we designed to do? So when you go back before the fall, you see that everybody was designed to do a few things: to be fruitful, right? As a species, to multiply, to subdue, and to have dominion. So for me, when God says that we're supposed to have dominion over the earth, then that means that every single person has leadership within them. Now, whether they believe it or not is a different story. And, you know, we get dominated. We get dominated by the things we're supposed to dominate. We get dominated by grass or weed. We get dominated by grapes or wine, whatever you want to call it. We get dominated by the things that we create. Therefore, we don't believe that we were built to dominate, because not only do we get dominated by other things, but then we try to dominate each other and put one person on the pedestal and create this lower tier level of human beings because it makes us feel powerful, but in the beginning, it just wasn't so. So that's why I always go back to that whenever I'm trying to think of, well, who in the world are we supposed to be? You know what I mean?
I agree.
You
No,
agree
go
with what?
ahead.
What'd you agree with?
I agree with Apollos because when I was hearing, it is the truth, again, with true and truth, it is the truth that everybody does not take on what they're capable of, basically. There is nobody that doesn't have potential to be a leader. It's just whether you choose to be one. But everybody has the ability to lead, and essentially, whether it was in your own lane or your own sector, you're supposed to lead something. Like no one was made to stand on the back end. But I feel like the world and our experiences cause some of us to take on that role. Excuse me. Whether it may be personal insecurities or just maybe not being aware of your capabilities and how powerful you actually are. Regardless, it has to do with an unknowing, or you're aware of how powerful you are and you may be afraid of it. Like you may not want to take that on. All of everyone that stated like, hey, everybody isn't called to be a leader. It had to do with a person deciding I'm going to take the back seat. Not because leading doesn't work for me. It was all a decision, a choice that was made. But essentially, is the role of every man to be a leader? Yes, I'm with Apollos. And going back to the word, we're supposed to lead. We're supposed to create disciples. We're supposed to, go ahead and do God's work in the world. We're supposed to impact others. That takes leadership. That takes you going ahead and saying, hey, I want to influence something or something in someone or help someone or guide someone, whether that be your children, your coworker, your friend, a stranger, whoever it may be. We all have tools to do just that. Now, if you use it, is a choice. But I do not feel that anybody was placed here to sit in a back row, even when you're not CEO, executive, or a boss in a sense. You can still be a leader in a sense. You can be one of the most efficient gears on a watch, right? You can be the example of that. So I don't think it's about hierarchy, which was Apollos was referring to that, where we created an idea of, oh, this person does it this way. We're going to put them on a pedestal and we don't meet that standard. It's kind of like we're under that or we're below that level. That was the only person that was ever put on that pedestal essentially from the beginning was God. So after that, it's all choice. It's all
Can I ask you a
man-made.
question?
Of course.
Eunuchs are in the Bible.
Absolutely.
If every man was, what is leadership about a eunuch?
What do you mean? One of the most powerful eunuchs started the Christian revival in Ethiopia. He was one of the most powerful men in Ethiopia at that time. And when he was on the road and he met, I believe it was Philip on the road, and he got saved and he got baptized. He's the one who, from what historians are saying, took the Bible, took the word of God and the gospel to Ethiopia, where the first Bible was created, and he was a eunuch. So I mean, to me, I think that
how many eunuchs was doing that? I mean,
it doesn't matter. We're all capable.
But the definition of eunuch is just a castrated male. Like it's not. It's not.
Why is he castrated though?
I mean, well, you have to go.
He's not there. He's not there. He wasn't there for leadership. He was just only there to watch over women in their virginity. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, let's pause on your statement. Rerun with your definition you just said. He was only what?
He was there to watch over women and to protect virginity or something like that.
And what would
that's not that's not leadership.
That is a sense of.
Why is that? How?
He's protecting.
You are in control of something. You are directing something. You have a level of authority over something. It doesn't matter how high you
are. It's not.
Hold on. Go ahead, I'll jump into this. Remember the verse where it says, "If your eye offends you, it's better for you to pluck it out, and if your arm cut it off. So from a male standpoint, that desire, and if you're supposed to be around women, I would then see an interesting correlation there as for literally following it through, because something could get you in trouble. You literally cut it off. So that would be my little 2 cents on that.
It doesn't stop him from being a leader, though.
No,
leadership is a heart thing. It doesn't have anything to do with genitalia. I think for men, the problem that we're facing now in the home is that we allowed Satan to reverse the order, where when you look in Genesis, it was the spiritual first, then it was some sort of emotional, and then it was sex. But because we reversed it and we've made sex, God, and the spiritual is last, now we don't know what to do, because women make just as much money, our wives make just as much money or more than us in certain areas. So now what do men have to resort to? They resort to strength. And that says more about who you're not than who you are, when really in the beginning it was always supposed to be spiritual. Remember, God didn't create Eve until he gave Adam the commandments. And then after he gave Adam the commandments, he said, wait a minute, it's not good for man to be alone. Now, when Eve was created, they both had everything. His job was to lead her, and her job was to help guide him, right? So but all of that goes back to a heart thing. So whether you are a eunuch, and there's really 3 types of eunuchs. There's men that are born eunuchs, that are there are men that have become eunuchs by other men, and men that have become eunuchs by themselves, right? And if we can define eunuch as someone who is sterile too, so that doesn't matter, in the grand scheme of things. It's more so of a heart thing, like who are you at your core, and who do you identify with, regardless of what you have and don't have physically. That to me, have y'all ever seen Hacksaw Ridge, that movie? It's a really good movie, y'all. It's about a gentleman who, I think it was World War II, and he would not pick up a gun. So they tried to kick him out of the army. They tried to do everything they could. They threw him in jail. He would not. He said God told him not to do it, and he just wouldn't do it. And they called him all sorts of things. There were men that were way bigger than him, men that were way stronger than him, men that were more powerful than him. And yet he was the one who saved, I believe, over 150 something men all by himself, when everybody else ran and retreated. So it's everything that we do. The flesh is one thing, but it just goes back to the heart of a man.
Interesting.
Humble Dad, if I may add something,
absolutely,
to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times people don't understand exactly what leadership is. And I think that's probably the reason why a lot of times women have a hard time looking at men as leaders, because we like to put leadership on a pedestal, like Tamia said. But in essence, you can lead from right where you are. You can lead from the front, you can lead from the middle, and you can lead from the back. But the thing about leadership is something that you take on. But at the same time, leadership still must be tested. You see what I'm saying? It must be tested. And what happens is you have to be groomed into leadership at some point in time. So that means at some point in time, you have to be an apprentice to learn what leadership is, because you can't put somebody in charge of something if they've never been trained. You know what I mean? That's not effective leadership. I remember when I first became a supervisor at the bank, and my boss told me, he said, now that you're a supervisor, he said, your first job is to find your replacement. And I asked him, I was like, why is that? He said, the reason why is because I told him I don't even know what it's like to be a supervisor. He said, that's the reason why I put you in management, is because you have the ability to learn and to find others who know how or who want to learn, and to develop them as you develop yourself. So leadership is one of those things that you learn along the way, and you're able to teach someone else, but it still must be tested. You know what I mean? By those who have come before you, So my thing is this: leadership can be at any place. Like I said earlier, you can lead from right where you are. So the ability of leadership is there, but whether or not you choose to accept it is another thing. The Bible says many are called, but the chosen are few.
Your children.
So this, man, I don't know how I forgot this, but I forgot this until it was just yesterday. Yesterday was Sunday, right?
It was.
Oh man, my pastor went in on Psalms 23.
Mm.
And he said, we're going to talk today about leadership. Man, so example jumps off by saying, the Lord is my shepherd. Oh man, and I shall not want. And then, it says that Jesus says, I'm the good shepherd. So in that, it's like, from an example standpoint, that is it. And lost in translation, I was drifting where you were going on what you were saying, because servant leadership, typically people don't put those two together, because a servant, and then no, that's a position of weakness, right? A eunuch, that piece, right? But as for servant leadership, that's what Jesus displayed, washing the feet of his disciples. That's what he did, as for showing what leadership is. And he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me by still waters. And the thing about it is, man, he went in to talk about how unsmart sheep are, right? So we're talking about men. Men, adult males, can be quite stupid at times, right? And based on the majority, or narrow is the gate, wide is the, okay. So as for the majority of us is dumb. So we need a good shepherd to be able to guide us into where the green pastures are and the still waters is. And I think, as for an example, as for the role in which we should play, in which we assume, Jesus is the perfect example in that whenever it comes to leadership.
So then that leads us to say that if you're saying that you're connecting us to men to being the leaders, because you're saying that Jesus was the good shepherd. God is the good shepherd, right? So then, as men, we're supposed to be shepherds. And I mean, if we go hang on the premise of how Prototype put it, with the if you're a husband, if you're a brother, if you're a friend, right, then there is a disposition of where there is a leadership that should be taking place in some regard, right? Would you agree with that, Prototype? Okay, so then that's what leads me to where the topic of today is, then are men the problem? Because if we're saying that the role of men is to be the leaders of the community and the households and all those things in between, regardless of what is going on. Hold on real quick.
Kids, adulting.
So what I'm saying is that, as John Maxwell said, he says that success rises and falls on leadership. So my question is, then do we blame men we got to transition and say, well, the reason why there's fatherless homes is because of men. The reason why the prison system is what it is because of men. The reason why the education system is what it is because of men. The reason why marriages are failing is because of men. The reason why relationships don't go well is because of men. If we're saying the things, that's the whole purpose in what I was kind of getting to. Mark Driscoll he's a pastor. He's a pastor. And he was talking about the different information. He gave all these different information about what's going on with young men not even wanting to be in the roles of leadership, right? And so therefore, if the man is not wanting to be in the role of leadership, but women are looking for men in the role of leadership, then are we to say that it's not the women, but it's the men that are the problem? Go ahead, Lost in Translation.
Just like you spoke to those young men who don't want to be leaders and who don't want to be fathers and that type of thing. My thing is this: look how we treat our leaders. We disrespect them. We don't hold our elders with high regards. So my thing is this: why would they want to be leaders? You know what I mean? What's the benefit? So I can see why they would do that. Because think about it. When we were coming up, Humble Dad, there was this thing that said you respected your elders. You know what I mean? And for that, we had a respect for them and we listened to them. But now when you have people tearing down your elders and disrespecting sound doctrine, then nobody wants to be, you know, a leader at that particular point. And who can blame them? You know what I mean? But my thing is this: if you hold somebody in high regards, that would make somebody say, you know what, I want to be respected. You know, I want to be looked up as an elder. I want to be looked at as a wise person. You know what I mean? If we hold them in high regards. So if we don't hold people accountable for not, you know, respecting our elders, then what are we supposed to expect going forward? And I think the degradation and the disrespect of men that we see today is evidence of that disrespect for leadership and that disrespect for the role of men.
Who got next?
I mean, I'll take a stab at it. You know, I think men are the problem. You know what I'm saying? Like off top. So I think a lot of it comes from, even when you speak about the disrespect for our elders, right? I mean, a lot of us come from single parent homes, and we've witnessed a lot of heartache, you know, a lot of disappointment from our elders. So it's like, how can we listen to our elders if we're better off? You know what I mean? We're doing better. I think we're better fathers now. You know, we're not leaving our homes. You know, there's a lot that plays into it. And I'm not saying it's all their fault. You know what I mean? There was a plan that was devised against them and it worked. You know what I'm saying? But I have a problem with the older generation based off of they didn't produce any leaders for us but they had leaders. Like, you know, they had the Malcolm X's and the Martin Luther Kings, and you know what I'm saying? What's the dude from the Black Panthers? You know what I mean? There was leaders all throughout the 70s, 60s, whatever. They left us none in the 80s. There weren't any. You know what I mean? So it's just like, who's our guy? You know what I mean? The churches have, you know, changed a lot. Like the churches our grandfathers went to is not the church we have today. You know what I mean? And a lot of people, the community was built off the church. The backbone, you know, everybody went to the church looking for support. Now it's just like the church isn't, you know, good for us, there for us, whatever. So there's a lot to go into it, man. But no, I think men are definitely the problem. And I see so many men pawn off the responsibilities of being a father, being a good neighbor, being someone for the community, being, you know what I mean? Like, I guess that's why I was so passionate last week, right? For someone to be like, I live here and I'm not responsible for what happens here, that bothers me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because you're supposed, that's the arms we're supposed to take up. Protect your home, protect your yard. You know what I mean? Look after your neighbor. You know what I mean? What happened to making sure nobody's robbing your neighbor? Like, what happened to, you know, those kind of things? What happened to, you know, not leaving your family? You know, raising your kids. You know, I like to think of it as, when men have kids, those are your kids. It's not necessary. It's not the woman's kids. She's helping you with your kids. You know what I mean? That's your legacy. That's not hers. Everybody changes to your name. You know what I mean? So once men understand that idea, then I think we'll be a lot better off. I think too often we're like, oh, it's the woman's fault, or it's her too, or any of that. And we need to take full accountability for what we're producing. So.
No, I like what Prototype said. It's and Lost in Translation. It is on this earth our responsibility. I think the order first and foremost is, and I keep going back to it, but sin first and foremost is the ultimate reason. And then next it is man, because we were given that authority, you know, to to lead in the right way, right? I like in 2 Timothy and Titus what it says is before you even can think about becoming any type of, effective leader, overseer, pastor, whatever it is. I go to a father, I go to, whoever it is in the community. It says to get your house in order first, right? And a lot of people think the house is the building and the structure with the wife and the kids. Nah, see, the house is this, right? The house is where the Holy Spirit lives. And it's like the problem is not the problem that is that men are the problem, is that we're not in the right order. That's it. We are out of alignment, right? So we can present ourselves very well on the outside. We have a lot of discipline when it comes to making money, when it comes to finding a wife, when it comes to doing certain things, when it comes to we have a lot of discipline when it comes to those certain things. But on the inside, honestly, it's because a lot of us lack the self-control that we actually need to lead fully. And that's a lot of us. That's why you see somebody like a Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, they can make billions of dollars, but they can't stay married, right? There's a disconnect in certain areas of our lives when it actually doesn't have to be. I believe, we have the ability through God, of course, through Christ, to become so whole that we can control all parts of our lives. We have the ability to have the power of love, power, and self-control with a sound mind. So it's not, it is that men are the problem because we were given that responsibility, and women honestly want us to lead. They do. They really do. They are really waiting for us to kind of make that step. Now, I'm gonna say this last thing. I'm very optimistic about this generation because, like Prototype said, we are staying home. We are trying to do the right thing. The thing is that we're trying to understand what that right thing is, because when we look at the generation before us, right, we don't really have that many role models. For me, it wasn't until I read the Bible over. I've read the Bible quite a few times, and now but then it becomes more than reading it. You start to study it so you can become it. Because I didn't know how to be a husband. I didn't know how to be a father, and I am not ashamed to admit that. But once I read the Bible and once I got into the Word and became aligned with God, becoming a husband and a father and a friend and a son and a leader in the community and whatever it is, it all starts to become natural, but it takes you renewing your mind daily. So for me, the problem is men, but it's more so that we're not connected to the source because we don't know what God is trying to tell us, because we're not reading the Word like we're supposed to. And once we can reconnect with the Word, then we can reconnect with God, which means we can reconnect with our wives, because a better man makes a better wife. A better wife makes a better family. A better family makes a better community. A better community makes a better society. A better society makes a better nation. A better nation makes a better world. And like, we've been saying, but it all starts with that man.
Well, let me ask you a question. The Bible says that there's safety in the multitude of counsel, which speaks back to what I said earlier about respecting your elders. Who better to guide you to God and how to be a better man than someone who's actually doing it? And to speak to what Prototype said earlier, he said, we don't have any leaders like we had in the 80s. Yes, we did. They just weren't famous. There were your local pastors who were actually doing their thing. You know what I mean? They weren't on TV, you know what I mean, with the televangelists and the prayer cloths and the prayer coins, you know what I'm saying, and telling you to send in this and send in that. Those people were charlatans. But the people who are actually doing work, they were in your community handing out turkeys on Thanksgiving, paying off light bills. You know what I mean? They don't put stuff like that in the news.
Those are drug dealers in my neighborhood.
That's the actual work that is being done, but that stuff is never televised. Like they used to say in the 70s, the revolution will not be televised. They weren't playing. Because you know why? Because we don't glorify hard work. We don't glorify men going in and staying at their homes. We don't glorify that. We glorify guys getting on TV, calling women out of their names, wearing gold chains, you know what I mean, and propping those guys up when we should be propping up the guys who work every day, 9-to-5 jobs, who come home and take care of their wives and kids, who make sure everybody goes to church. You know what I mean? And not only that, there will be a time when people look back on this time and they're going to say, man, y'all actually had Apollo sitting in your group and you didn't recognize greatness when you saw him, when you talked to him, they're going to say you didn't see Humble Dad when he was on live, going talking to people when he had a few thousand subscribers, and you didn't listen to him. They're going to look back on us like they look back on Martin Luther King and say, what did you do when you had the opportunity to talk to that particular person? So being somebody who's from the 70s and the 80s and 90s and saw people who actually do the work but didn't get the fanfare, that's when I hold exception to it, because I was there and I saw them and I helped them and they helped me. You see what I'm saying? Along the way. So my thing is this: we need to start giving credit to the people that's due and start giving honor to the elders, because those are the ones who are going to lead us in the next generation. Those are the ones who's going to teach us how to get where we need to go. And that's why I spoke to you earlier about making sure that we respect our elders and lay at the feet of the elders, so you too one day can be a master of your domain. You too can be a master of your neighborhood. You too can be a master of your community. So that way you can also be a servant of your community, a servant of your household. You see what I'm saying? Those are the things that have to be taught, but it can't be done overnight. Certain things have to be done over time, because you have to allow yourself room to grow. There's this thing in social psychology that's called cognitive dissonance. All of us have it. You see what I'm saying? That's where you actually have a particular belief, and it must be washed out in order for you to make progress. And it takes time. And with that time comes grace. And with that time comes mercy. And that's the reason why you can't do it overnight. You see what I'm saying? So with that being said, yes, we should go back and listen to those who've come before us, because they've walked in the steps and the places that we know we need to go. But until we release that spirit of rebellion, we will continue to produce what we have produced that does not serve this world.
But I don't know what neighborhood you grew up in, Lost and Trans, but that's just not the norm, from my peer group. You know what I mean?
What? You're right.
It's more so of a, like, it's our turn now. Y'all failed us. We up now. You know what I mean? Step aside, go sit down somewhere. We'll fix this.
That's mine too. Yeah.
So so wherever you came from, bro, congrats, dog.
Yeah.
But we didn't come from that, man. And like I said, the people giving out the turkeys, the people paying light bills, the people doing that was the drug dealers in my community. It wasn't the pastors.
It was the pastors in our community.
It wasn't the pastors. It was
the
dope boys.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's like I said, our neighborhoods got ran down. It became whatever it is, and however we're dealing with it. But like I said, the way I feel about it, hey, elders, go take a seat. We'll fix it. Don't worry about it.
My dad was a pastor, and then I almost stopped believing in God, which was my own fault, because of what I saw him do. You know what I mean? So however, I was using that as a justification for me just doing what I wanted to do anyway. So that's why I'm not putting it on the elders. For me and my community, I just didn't have any. But that didn't give me an excuse not to do what I'm supposed to do. So that's why I always say I thank God for Jesus, because if it wasn't for me getting into the Bible and doing it, I wouldn't know what I'm doing. My wife will tell you that. People that know me will tell you the same thing. So yes, I didn't have that like prototype. I just didn't have it. But after a certain amount of time, I said, you know what, God, I'm done running. I can't make this an excuse anymore. And then once I took the responsibility on myself and created that accountability for myself, because understanding that really the only person that can keep you accountable is you and God. Because when you are by yourself and those temptations, all that stuff hits, you ain't calling nobody. You want to, you're not calling nobody, so you have to be able to do what Paul says, and that's, transformed by renewing your mind every single day.
Yeah.
Oh, you, Dwayne?
Yeah, man. So, man, to your question, I was sitting there thinking I was gonna hit it like prototype was, men are the problem. But I want to say, it's weak men that are the problem.
Uh-oh.
It is weak.
Trigger.
It is weak men that are the problem. And you know what? I look at it like this, and to Lost in Translation's point, and you brought it up to prototype. Like leaders like Malcolm X. Malcolm X was sat there and he was saying, as for look at who we prop up as heroes. and he was pointing out to the Black community. He said we prop up musicians, celebrities, actors, and all these people, right? As those people are to be our role models and our example in our society. And if you then fast forward to where we are today, that's exactly what is propping up our society from that standpoint. It's all these social media influencers now in this day and age, right? It's all these celebrities and all this other stuff that is pushing these stupid, and I'll put it to the point where it's like it's self-destructive behavior that they're pushing to the masses, and the masses are so sheepish that guess what? They're going to follow. And I was thinking too. It's something that we're buying. We're buying these things, and if we're buying the lie, what we're doing is in turn giving up our dominion. So, men, like what you said, going back to the very beginning, right? It's about dominion. We have it, but we can give it up. How do we give it up? By buying the lie. Did God really say? That's all. That's the question. Did God really say? And then once we start questioning it, we buy the lie. And then the deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper we get into it. So I look at it from that standpoint. As for men, so men being weak and not assuming the roles in which we're supposed to play, men looking at these other examples of what men are in our societies, and they're not really men. I'm just because they got the car, they got the girl, they got the this and that, the other. These are all materialistic, superficial things, but they were their soul. Who has their soul? So in it, I look at it from the standpoint is we need to be able to reclaim our dominion. We don't have to look at nobody as for blame anybody from the past, because guess what? We have now. And the thing about it is once you know better, you got to do better. So just like what you were saying, lost in translation, right, is you could lead from where you are at. So right now, if we can now sit here and we could talk about and point out what the problems are, we can now start to be solutions to those problems. And as for HD, that's why it's so important for this platform that we're having these dialogues, having these conversations, how to be better, because that's what it is about. We're men. We're here with women as well. And what we're trying to do is how can we be better human beings, not just for ourselves, but as for our society, as for our future.
I would like to play devil's advocate. Y'all putting all this weight on the men, but what about these no good women that's encouraging this bad behavior? I mean, you, Dwayne, just sit there and said it's the weak men, but you got most of these weak men been put in leadership, and they got a serpent, aka a woman, in their ear telling them go ahead and go get it. But see, nobody brings it full circle, because every time you look at Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, they always had a woman on their side, right? Helping them push forward. Here praying with them, right? Ain't that what we speaking of? Y'all speaking on the Bible, quoting this and that and other, but y'all not understanding there was somebody on the side of them too. Y'all want to leave out the woman. You can't leave out. I don't put all of it on the man, because you know why? Because like we were talking about last night, lost in translation. When you go back, the man was taken out the household and the woman allowed it. So you got all these little boys running around here trying to be something that they don't know. They don't have a man's point of view as to being a man. So how you gonna be mad at this little boy that's trying to be a man, that his mother don't push him in this role because she done pushed the father out just for some government assistance? And then he's up here trying to do this and fight whatever he got to go on the outside of the door. And now he's becoming what he thinks and what he's being told by a woman is a man. So then that's where the weak man stems from. A woman trying to tell a man how to be a man, which is don't work, because I can't tell you that. I can't tell you how to go out there and operate, because what I say is not what's going to be out there on the side of the door waiting on them. So we can't just sit here and say it's men, it's men, it's men. No, it's women too, because I guarantee you every celebrity got somebody on the side pushing or driving. Don't y'all all got wives? Somebody push and drive y'all every day to be a better person.
But
Come
that's
on
the
now.
thing, though, Ash. We have to choose well, though.
Hey,
Like,
I didn't
That's
say
what
we
I was
were
gonna
choosing well.
say.
I didn't say we were choosing well. I didn't
I'm
say
saying
that.
though, but I'm just saying if a man,
No, the men
man,
have to.
if a man doesn't choose well, then that's on him.
I didn't say it wasn't. I'm just
So
saying.
I'm saying so that's what I'm saying. So like, and if men would literally take their role as being the the selector, right? Because we are the hunters. So think about it
Okay.
like this. So if the man took it from the perspective of that, I am the hunter and I get to choose who my prey is. Right?
Okay.
I get to choose where my seed goes. Right?
Okay.
So and most men don't have that opportunity. So it's the thing of it is that the high level men have that opportunity, whether they have good character, whether they funny dudes, whether they're handsome dudes. There's only a small percentage of dudes that has access to several women, right? So what I'm
Okay.
saying is, if those men decided to lead from integrity and character and from the scripture, you will see a totally different dude. That's why if you look at it from the position of how Muslims run, right, as opposed to Christianity, that or people saying that they're Christian, but then they live in how they live in. Muslim men take leadership very, very seriously. They don't blame the women for what's going on in their community. You feel
But the
me?
women really don't have a say so in that community.
Exactly. Why is that? That's
So
because of
then
the
they
men. That's because the men do not allow them that. And so it goes back to
Okay.
when you say, well, the woman kicked the dude out. Well, he
No,
chose to
no, no,
leave
no.
his
I didn't
own.
say the women. I said the system. No, no, no. I didn't say the
No.
women.
I got what you're saying. But what I'm saying is, if the dude, now get me wrong, the woman needs to decide that this is the dude that's I'm procreate with. But I'm also saying that holding that dude accountable that's sleeping with that woman, right? I'm holding him accountable to say, listen, bro, you don't want to just plant your seed anywhere because everything ain't good soil. You feel me? And so
Okay.
I'm saying that if we look at it from the way that it was given, the reason why the fall of man happened was not because of Eve. It was because of Adam. You feel me? So
Okay,
even
but
though Eve sinned, and think about this, Adam didn't even get to choose his wife. You know what I'm saying? She was given to him. Okay. And so he made the decision to do something that he was told not to do. So what I'm saying is that operates in the position of when you talk about the woman said she pushed it. Well, the government allowed, it was a system, yes, but he still could have said, listen, I'm not going nowhere. I'm gonna be right here with you and my seed. He could have said that, and things would
then
have
that
been
you
different.
can, but then you got to go back to the upbringing.
can
What if
I
his dad was just a pushover too? See,
It
that's what
doesn't
I'm
matter.
saying.
It
hey
doesn't
Yes,
can
matter.
to me it does. You may say it don't matter, but to me, a lot of good people go by what they see in their household. If they really
Oh
don't
yeah,
see
agree
their
with that.
daddy fighting,
right.
they not gonna fight. They just gonna keep it moving and go plan another family and try to have a better experience. Because let's talk about the trauma that comes with some of these people. You know what I'm saying? It's not. To me, I just don't feel like men should get the total blame for it because at the end of the day, we all are to blame.
That's
We all
unfortunate
are to
because
blame
men are
regardless.
always going to be the ones to
So
blame.
We
Hold
appreciate your
on.
sentiment, Ash.
I'm just
We
saying, I just
appreciate that,
can't, I
but
just can't.
men are
From
always
my
going to be
point
the
of
ones
view,
to blame.
I just can't.
Listen, Ash. Men are always going to be the ones to blame because I'm gonna tell you why, right? Because we are the leaders. Okay. The reason why a coach gets fired is because he's considered a leader, even though he has players on his squad. We talk bad about the president or whoever, the congressman, congresswoman, or whatever, the system that's going on because of the leaders. So whoever is in the leadership position has more dominance. And so I'm saying, like I'm thinking about it because I understand when I'm talking to women, I'm gonna tell them what they need to be doing different. But I'm saying men have to move differently than how they're moving. Just because because right now the red pill community is saying, get your money up, then go find you somebody, right? That's men teaching men that, okay? And when in the book, Marriage is for White People, and we'll wrap this up. Marriage is for White People. I'll let you have the last word to me. That when black men over 30, when black men get to $100,000 or more, they are less likely to be married. Okay, they're less likely to get married but on the flip side, white men are more prone or twice as likely to get married after they have achieved that success. Why? Because black men see it as different. They see I got money and I got options because the black man is the most desired man in the world. Period. So a black man has money. He has options of any type of woman he wants. And so I'm saying that's on the man. We created this environment. So now we got to change it. Go ahead, Tamir.
That's what I was gonna tell Ash because I get where you're coming from, but like Humble Dad kind of said, it's always gonna fall back on the men because the man is the beginning. The man sets the tone. So it's like as much as even the man in that woman's house that made her feel like she could raise a son that doesn't understand his position, that man in that woman's house, that mother's house, is the problem. She didn't see a man of leadership, so she's raising a son in an improper way. It always goes back to the man and whatever was cultivated in that household. So no, like the woman, she's just a part of the system. Like you said, she's just a serpent. She's just like the one that's speaking negatively or making her son her partner more than her son or doing all of this other stuff. That's because she didn't see a man that played the proper role. It's still on the man. So it's like even her becoming has to do with the lack of a man. So it's like, yeah, she's not the greatest person. Yeah, she's not doing the right thing. Yes, she's part of his downfall. But at the end of the day, it is in a man's makeup. Like if we're, Ash, we've been in many conversations about at the end of the day, the man is the leader. He's supposed to set the tone. He's supposed to have it in him to shift gears. So if he's seeing in his household, I think we talked about it with Prototype, where I was like, hey, like if you start seeing your women bite back, you are fostering an environment where it's like she thinks that's how this environment runs. So now I have to bite back. Now I'm no longer feminine. Now I'm no longer submissive because you always bite at me. That woman that's raising that son like that or telling her son, oh, it's okay, you don't need no woman, or you don't leave her, or take care of me first. She wasn't initially that way. She's biting back because a man fell short. So it's like it still always goes back to that male. As much as like, yes, there are things that happen in these males' lives where they act this way, but if you dig to the core, there's the lack of a man in that picture. We very rarely see a woman who's raised with her father or her uncle, it could have been any man, and played a role for her, and then she has a son and she's like in his ear saying negativity. She had to see it somewhere. Some man had to show her something wrong or fail her in some type of way to now where she is showing up that way. Even in a partnership, even when you see it's all part of the system. Even the women that are like, be a rapper, do drugs, sell drugs. Why are you trying to get a job? We're broke. We need the money now. Go find the money fast way. She saw that from some other man. TV, radio, uncle, brother, cousin, father. It was a man.
And don't get me
If I
wrong.
might add, Humble Dad, if I might add one last,
you got the last
small piece.
Yeah, you got the last. Yeah.
Ash, here's the thing. Why do you think they didn't shoot Betty Shabazz or Coretta Scott King? Because the power and authority is with the man. That's the reason why. That's the reason why.
Said it's been a dope show. I really appreciate y'all. Y'all have sparked a new conversation. Men set the tone. We may talk about that next week. Ain't no telling. I asked Prototype what we should talk about next week. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate you, Apollos. Since we've been going over, just people can, if y'all see the hashtags, that's where you can catch everybody at on their channels. I think Ash is 360 Diva. Apollos is on Instagram. Him and his wife, they talk about marriage and the likes. You got Prototype, always making sure that men are taking care of their business. Dwayne, he says he takes photographs. I'm just playing. He does a really good job. He should be a professional for sure. And then Tamia, the workout queen over there, and also giving women advice on how to be a good wife. Lost in Translation. He's doing this thing like Monday through Friday, I believe. You put his name in Google, you just find out where he's at. And then I'm always here, Humble Dad Podcast. And don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, we out here. Deuces.
The boy is dangerous.
Bad feeling about this.
You don't seem to understand something.
The thing that I like most about being a dad is that I see that I'm about to impact the world.